All right, welcome back, Chelsea fans, to another episode of the London is Blue podcast. That's right, we're here on a Monday with a Chelsea women's match review. Obviously, the men elected to not play club football at all in this in the cup football, I should say, over the weekend because they did not advance in the FA Cup, and so we've had a weekend without men's football, Ollie, which frankly has been delightful for me. It's the lack of disappointment just lifting everything up. What about you?
Yeah, like it's a bit of a chilled one. I don't want to get used to it, I have to say, Nick. I'd rather we were
Me too.
well involved and looking how the FA Cup's going right now, literally anyone and their dog can win it. So you really wanted to be involved, but yeah, let's hope
The
that
most
the boys come
winnable
back
FA
recharged.
Cup in years, and we're not there. It's like awesome, cool.
Yeah,
Uh,
pretty much.
but but that's not the point. The point about this one is that we're going to dive into Chelsea's draw away at Brighton and the implications of that draw, the upcoming fixture list in March, which includes 7 more matches in March for Chelsea in the WSL, in the League Cup, in the FA Cup, and in the Champions League. It is going to be a huge month for women's football. So if you have not tuned in, this would be the time. It is really winning time now for this team. And that does lead us to our 3-word match review, Ollie, just to get straight into this one. What is your 3-word match review for Chelsea 2, Brighton 2?
I was gonna go with Sunny side up, but I'll go with Sonia side up because we are still 5 points clear at the top of the table, Nick. And I think, coming back from this international break, we always struggle historically, right? It takes us a couple of games, if not 3 or 4, to get into it. Luckily, we've got 7 this month, so at some point we will get back to 100%. But yeah, there are a few slow starters coming back. I think the international break came at a good time for a few of them, but for a couple of players out there, it looked like it was kind of overload and working their way through it. But
Yeah.
there was damage limitation there, getting that point there at the end.
Yeah, I went with blinking warning signs. There are some things we're going to talk about at the end of this episode that are not catastrophic, not even, I'm not even complaining about these things, but I do believe that there are some things that we need to fix or begin to kind of organize differently to have a shot at the end goal, which is the Champions League, to really make it that far. So just kind of calling out some of those things and what we want to watch out for. But the opponent was Brighton. It was Sunday, March 2nd in the year of our Lord 2025. Competition, of course, in WSL. Location, Broadfield Stadium. I believe that's Crawley Town's stadium, right, Ollie?
Cursed place, Nick. An absolutely cursed place. It's essentially a ploughed field. If you imagine Kings Meadow, but if like they did like
Weeds popping up from the ground and
yeah, just like a bunch of tractors ran over it beforehand just to make sure that that sort of thing.
nice and even, for sure. Yeah. Scoreline 2-2, as I said before. This was kind of all over the place. Sandy Baltimore opens up the scoring. Oslagers in the 22nd minute, Vicky Losada in the 42nd minute, and then Lauren James in the 61st minute. So we go up, we go down, we even up, and that does lead to a starting lineup that was, I think, probably as expected as possible, given the pre-match comments on some injured players. We'll get to that in a second. Hannah Hampton between the sticks, Lucy Bronze, Millie Bright, and Naomi Girma making her first appearance and first start for Chelsea. More on her later. Sandy Baltimore as a wingback, Shuka Nuskin, Kira Walsh, and Johanna Ritten-Cannerid as the other wingback. We had Vika Kaptein, Lauren James, and Aggie Beaver-Jones kind of playing a rotating 3 up top in whatever positions that they damn well chose. That was kind of the way that worked. It certainly was. There's no doubt about that. Orion Jean Francois does come in at halftime for Kira Walsh, a little precautionary, I think, / tactical change out there. Natalie Bjorn comes in for Naomi Girma, who does pull up with a bit of a calf. That's the injury she's been working on since she was transferred to Chelsea. Myra comes in for Shuka. Ashley Lawrence comes in for Cannerid, and then Macario finally comes in for Vika Kaptein. So unused subs. Welcome Rebecca Spencer to Chelsea Football Club.
Welcome back.
That's going to be something that we talk about. Neve Charles, precautionary pullout in the warm ups. Lola Brown and Vera Jones make up the rest of the bench. But look, Ollie, you had some context that you wanted to share as we entered into this period of statistics. What would you like to share?
Yeah, look, I mean, Brighton have been a very up and down team this season, but
Mm-hmm.
what's undeniable is their best form is at home, right? We've been over,
Mm-hmm.
the Broadfield Stadium. It's it's not the best pitch. It's quite close. It's a bit like Kingsmeadow, to be honest, but without a very good pitch. Um, and they've been very hard to kind of turn over there. They've lost a couple of times, but they're fifth in the league in terms of home form as it stands after this game, and they're ninth out of 12 in the WSL on away form. So it's very clear where their kind of priorities lie and where their kind of best or most adept performances have been. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
kind of worked out today, especially against an off-color Chelsea, I'd say.
Well, and these were some of the pre-match comments from Sonia Bonpastor as well, saying that, hey, in the previous, fixture against Brighton, we did win, but it wasn't easy. They played us incredibly tough. They pressed the absolute hell out of us. I mean, that was kind of her thing, which is, the scoreline and the performance are not necessarily the same thing. And it was very similar today as we get into the stats. I mean, this is, Chelsea having 16 shots, 8 on target to Brighton's 10 shots, 4 on target. Chelsea bossing possession was 62%, but it was a hard 62%. It was not easy. Pass accuracy better at 84% than 69. 9 fouls to Brighton's 13. We'll talk about the time wasting and the shenanigans in this one. Only 1 yellow card apiece in this. Okay.
Yeah, it feels low. It feels low.
And then we out cornered them 8-4. But one thing I did want to call out in the stats here, Ali, is there was only 1 big chance scored per team, 2 big chances missed per team, and Brighton were the ones with the through balls in this game, not Chelsea. And what I found interesting about that is you sign someone up, like Kira Walsh, for example, because you want to have a more positive advancing of the ball through midfield and even over the top. And there were a couple of long balls that Chelsea did pull off in this game, but I'm not quite seeing the through ball action yet, which we with your Lauren James and your Myras and your players who are really really quick off the shoulder of the last defender could be incredibly dangerous and could make the difference. We're just not really seeing that to this point. Any thoughts on why that is not happening?
Yeah, I felt like the whole thing was kind of down to this, just the kind of low energy I was getting from it.
Mm,
Kira was clearly, I feel like she wasn't 100% fit. She was kind of, she had some nice touches on the ball, but she was kind of uncharacteristically slow in her decision making and kind of getting rid of the ball and laying it off. And that meant that Brighton pushed in closer and tighter. And that meant that she didn't have as much time on the ball to work with, right? And I
mhm.
also thought that Vika was very low energy, and that's completely unheard of for her, right? She's
I
like
know.
a complete dynamo usually, and I I think not having Erin on the bench as well, uh, sorry, Shurka and other people not being necessarily 100% as well, that all meant we couldn't really play through them through the middle, and it kind of meant that we were quite disjointed. And I think also
Mhm.
we'll get onto it in terms of formation, but I feel like the formation, especially the back three, didn't really play into the fact that we didn't have much space in the middle and we could have been a bit more direct. And I think that changed actually when Myra came on, right? I think it
Mhm.
opened the game up a bit. We then had a pivot to play off. She's someone who you can trust to hold the ball up and obviously move the defense around and create more space. But yeah, I think at least until Myra came on, we were getting most of our joy out wide on the left through
Mhm.
Sunday and Lauren James.
Which has been the case most of the season. Is you're playing on the flanks and the midfield is there to kind of clean up and distribute out wide. It's an interesting setup. Uh, Journalism RP, who I think is echoing a lot of the sentiment here about the lack of VAR and the WSL, is a game like this is super interesting, right? Because Lauren James is clearly offside for the equalizer. Like there can be no doubt about that. It is what it is. But then Chelsea probably should have had a couple penalties in this game that weren't given as well, which, again, VAR could potentially help with. And then, you look at Brighton, and they probably should have had one as well. And this is, I think, Ollie, some of the frustration. Like we all know that the WSL hasn't had VAR, and it's super frustrating. But
Yeah.
you look at something like, I don't know, the way that it's done in the men's league or the way that it's done in other leagues, and surely these sorts of things are easily kind of chalked off or given, and these are more the binary choices that you have. Is it a penalty? Is it not a penalty? Is it offsides? Is it not offsides? And I think we are at the point now, not saying the VAR is perfect by any means. It certainly needs to be fixed, and the people interpreting VAR need to be completely changed out. But this is a thing that I think is hurting the women's game in England in particular, is that there is not VAR. And I understand the stadium setups are different and that it can be challenging, but it needs to be an investment because, this is a game where it probably all evens out ish, but those are 4 missed calls, 4 big missed calls, and you just can't have it.
Yeah, I mean, the other part of it, obviously, that only happens in small stadiums, is that the sun played a big factor today. Going back to my 3-word match review in terms of sunny side up, like, on their first goal, Hannah probably doesn't concede, and if she's not staring into the sun, the lino probably gives offside against Lauren James if she can actually see her rather than holding her hand up to see
trying,
anything.
But yeah,
she was struggling. She was really struggling. And yeah, I think, just having access to that kind of thing is clearly a blocker. But as you say, we go back to it in terms of like the officiating in general. There was so much kind of confused decisions in terms of what was a bad foul, what was considered clumsy, what was played on. It was kind of very mixed messages from the referee on the day, and they are going to be the ones who make those decisions on VAR. So again, it's like you can give them the tools, but they're going to have to make those decisions, right? And as you rightly say, going back, these are largely non-league stadiums. So you're talking like third, fourth, fifth tier of English football. In order for those 21 cameras to be installed, whatever, for semi-automated offsides, or a 6 for VAR, that is a degree of investment that probably falls on either a team that is co-running a men's and women's team, like a Chelsea or a United or whoever, or some degree of funding for that part of the English football pyramid, which is a very political subject, mate.
Well, how dare we enter that fray? Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Because I would say, like, even the NWSL in the States, they do have VAR, and I can speak to Kansas City in particular because that's the team that we have here locally. They've even invested in partners for VAR. So, like, the VAR in Kansas City comes out of a Yeti cooler, and they can look at the video screen through it. It's like there are ways to get this done, right?
Sure.
There are ways to understand how to get this done. I just want to call that out because I want this game to continue to grow and get better, and there are ways to do that without kind of breaking the bank. So, one random stat here, just kind of close out on that point. Harry Edwards, always with the stats. I love this guy. Chelsea have now played 250 games in the WSL, including spring series back in the day when it wasn't the same organization as we have now. 171 wins, 37 draws, 42 defeats, 628 goals scored, 216 conceded. I don't know. Is that good? And then 8 titles, just the casual 8 titles there. But thoughts and feelings about the overall record there, Ollie? It's a pretty good one. I feel good about it.
Yeah, it seems good, Nick. I mean, why don't we add, say, a fair few more goals, maybe a fair few fewer conceded going forward, and maybe no defeats would be would be a great look by the end of the season. Let's go with that.
Yeah, I don't want that 42 defeat number to go at all. It hasn't to this point in the season so far.
Yeah,
so,
it's the meaning of life, Nick. Let's stick with 42, man.
All right, well, let's do a quick ad break. Thanks to the sponsors, and we'll be right back to talk about the intricacies of this one. All right, Ollie, this was kind of, I think I'm titling this "A Case of the Wobbles." right? Up and down game. We started poorly, got back into it, got the goal, went off the boil considerably at the end of the half, give up two relatively cheap goals, and then we dominate the second half, but only get one back, right? And I think we were talking a little bit before we started as to what that means, and Chelsea stringing together really impactful, consistent performances. This was a game where Aggie Beaver Jones, Lauren James, and Sandy Baltimore were excellent. I think they were the standout players for Chelsea. Many others failed to meet the standard, and I think that that's a lot of the other folks who are on the field. And there have not been, since I think Chelsea have gotten back from an extended break over the winter, I don't think I've seen a consistent 90 of kind of excellent play. And this was certainly one of those games. You think back to, even Chelsea Everton, which we had to win late. That was a struggle. Chelsea West Ham, not necessarily a great, performance. Chelsea Villa, not necessarily a great performance. The 1-0 win over Arsenal, I will take every single day of the week and twice on Sundays. Not a phenomenal performance. Durham, is what it is. And really, I think you have to go back to the first WSL game after the long break, Chelsea 5, West Ham 0, where it's probably the closest thing to a full 90. But what do you think's going on here? I mean, is this just simply the international break screwing with us? Is it players out of form? Like what's going on?
Yeah, I think it's a few things. I do think traditionally Chelsea women come back from international breaks very, very slowly. Yeah, we take 1 to 3 games to kick on. I do think that a few players have had to play more than maybe we'd like to in terms of squad management. We've seen a few players miss out, and I think definitely today there are a lot of precautionary decisions. I'd even categorize some of the players going off rightly as precautions as well, because I think Naomi, I think maybe if it's like the Champions League final and she has a tight calf, maybe plays on for a bit longer. But you don't want anything to happen to her, especially on debut. And we know her issues with the calf before she even signed. It was flagged during her medical. But yeah, I think things like Niamh Charles not making the bench as well last minute was again a last minute decision where she didn't feel 100%. And I think going back to what you were saying about this run, we're just trying to dial in to make sure all the pieces are in place to make sure we can get the best run of results together in order to achieve all our goals. And on Sky before the game, Sonia was saying that she'd be really unhappy if we didn't win all 4. So that's where her mindset is. She wants to win everything. And, it's not just about winning the WSL. All things being equal, we should be in that place now just by virtue of our record to this point, even with this draw today. It's about, getting all those ducks in a row. And it's things like making sure that, for instance, Micah, who has been a revelation in adding energy this year and especially off the bench, being that kind of catalyst to making sure we find that extra gear right at the end, making sure that the likes of Lauren and Sunday can express themselves and keep their form at their current level, but also making sure that players like Myra, especially while we have Sam Kerr still out and while we have other striking options, maybe making their way in other positions like Aggie, who I thought had a better day today, playing from deep and running towards goal, which I feel is maybe more her strength than being in and around the box. I think that's something she needs to develop. It's just about finding that mix, right? And there were times today where you can absolutely see the quality. And you said earlier, Nick, about the moments, right? Lauren James's footwork, Sonny Baltimore's footwork, Aggie on our equalizing goal just makes the goal, right? With that brilliant turn totally. on her weaker side. Those kind of moments just need to be knitted together over the course of this month, because we are going to play a lot of football, and you can see why we didn't want to put all our eggs in one basket in terms of Brighton away. And we'll take this draw, right? And we'll go on from there.
I mean, one of the things I want to talk about is kind of the merits of a bit of a formation change since Sonia got here, and that's moving to this kind of three at the back, Bronze, Bright, and whoever the other center back is, whether that's Bjorn or now Girma. Well, you know why she's doing it, because Bronze is not necessarily the most forward, progressive passer in the world, and you want to make sure that you have some protection for her. She's an excellent defender, and she's really played to an outstanding level this year, but is probably a little bit more comfortable as a right center back at this point than she is as a full right back. You want to utilize the strengths of Sandy Baltimore or Neve Charles, who are excellent going forward and can really provide a different aspect there. You have JRK, who is more than comfortable bombing up and down, but I think is a little confused as to positioning at times in this wing back setup rather than being a member of a front three, or just a pure winger. It does close out the amount of space that some of our midfielders need to do side to side, right? So it helps contain them, and by proxy, they can contain back as well. But I do think it leaves gaps potentially going forward, as we're seeing right now. It's not as fluid of an attack as we've seen earlier in the season or anything like that. Harry Edwards hates with a capital H. And I was following him on Twitter during the game, and I love seeing this. Like, it's not working. Stop doing it. He even said the fact that Bjorn and Bright, when Bjorn came on for Girma, looked like they had never played with each other, should tell Sonia that three of the back isn't it. I mean, what are the merits of this versus what are the weaknesses? And do you think that there's a change potentially coming to this, or are we three at the back the rest of the year?
I think it's something just Sonia wants to keep in her bag. I think, luckily for Harry, I don't think it's going to come back much of this month. I might be wrong, but I think a lot of it was around building around Naomi Girma, right? Making sure she had, she had defense around her, especially Millie being very close by and being that physical presence. Because when you're dealing with the likes of Hayley, who is a very tough customer to deal with, right?
Yeah.
She's a very good forward on her day, and clearly is going to be a problem for lots of defenses, right? It was one of those cases of like, Naomi, this is the physicality of the league, right? You may not have the quality level across the board that the NWSL might have, but you're going to have the physicality and then some, because really in the WSL we prioritize physicality over quality in a lot of aspects, especially with the teams that get less investment, because you see the upside of that, especially around disruption of very well structured defenses, right? And I think that's what happened to us today. We were easy to press, Nick, because what happened was essentially with Kira coming close to the back three, it brought all of Brighton's press centrally, which meant Naomi couldn't beat the press really on her debut. It meant that Millie was having to play the ball fast into Sunday Baltimore or JRK, and it meant Lucy was being pinned back for the vast majority of time. There was lots of comments on commentary about how deep Lucy Bronze was playing. It's like, she's playing right centre back, you know that, right? but like they took a while to count on.
Count them. There's 1, 2, and 3.
But to your point, like I do think we'll see some chopping and changing this month, just by the nature of the fact that players will be in and out of form, players will be in and out of fitness, there'll be returning players, there'll be a different quality of opposition, especially over the run against Man City. That's going to be really fascinating to see how we play them across those cup competitions. But yeah, I don't think we'll be using the back three outside of specialized situations. I think, to be honest, that was mainly to instill a bit of confidence in Girma and have her teammates around her as she kind of got up to speed with the league. And actually, she goes off with a calf strain, and we hope it's nothing much. It was probably just a precaution again with her feeling that tightness, but I think that's good in her getting accustomed to the league. I feel like she is a very quick learner. She's clearly a very
Mm-hmm.
intelligent footballer. And that sort of thing is how you learn and get accustomed to a league like this, right? She quickly learned that she couldn't stand off Haley, who she may know from the US college system, right?
Get
And
tight.
yeah, and exactly, get in tight, let her know you're there, and make sure that your defensive partner can clean up around. And she adapted to that. And although Haley gave her a really good battle throughout the game, I'm thankful it happened because I want her to be challenged in that way and come out of it and learn from it in that way.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens there. I feel like the with the back three, our spacing between defense, midfield to attack just feels off. Like we can sometimes get too congested in areas and too spaced out in areas. It just doesn't feel as even as when we're playing something like a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1. Also, the press doesn't feel nearly as effective. When we do try and do it, you saw Aggie and Lauren, to their credit, doing the best that they could. Occasionally, you get JRK up from the wingback position, but obviously that's a long. You're asking a lot there. That's a big run. So it's almost like you have to play a little bit further back because those three, you'd have to move your entire four in midfield up, and then you're easily played behind. It can be 3v3 very, very easily. So I'm interested to see what happens there. I want to see Walsh as more of like a playmaking six instead of in a dual pivot, and I want to see Aaron or Vika or Shuka as those bombing forward eights really, really bad, because I think that will help balance a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, like it's stretching the middle, I think that's why Michael was such a big miss today, right? Because in the absence of Vika and Shurka being able to assert themselves, and there were times that they did, cut the ball out and give us great attacks, but they were few and far between compared to how we have associated with them this season, right? And I do think Vika especially has burnt out slightly in the last, I'd say, month or so in terms of her energy levels, whereas Micah had peaked, and going into the international break she scores 2 goals, right? And you're so ready for her to come back and explode again, and she has an ankle knock, so hopefully that's not much, and she'll be back relatively soon. But I think we really missed her energy to stretch the game and give Walsh that space today.
Yeah, just on the injury update, and the list is relatively long, so let me take a second to get through this. Naomi Girma, Bump Estor comes out and says she's learning about the league, the team, and her teammates. As you can see, the first game is never easy, super competitive. It was good to have her start this game, building minutes and being able to play with the team. We'll need to assess her tomorrow, but it doesn't look too bad, so we'll see. It's kind of the feeling. Walsh, slight abductor muscle injury, but I think, again, precautionary. There's a lot of football to be played this month.
Yeah.
Aaron is still out with a pesky rib injury, and this is probably the most worrying one for me of the group right now, because no Aaron Cuthbert, no party is kind of my vibe in this team. She does too much and it's too important. So let's just hope it's such a tough injury to rehab. And then very easy to re-injure if it's
Right.
not fully back. So hopefully, fingers crossed on Aaron. Guro played on AstroTurf during the international break. Again, burn all AstroTurf. Fucking awful thing. She has a back injury now, which is very frustrating and kind of worrying. Micah has the ankle injury. Neve Charles was just precautionary today, but it looked like a little bit of the scientific term of niggle. That's very scientific
Knock,
as it is. Small knock, yes. And then goalkeeping, obviously, lifting foot injury and is seemingly out for the rest of the year. So that's why Becky Spencer is on loan from Tottenham until the end of the season. Yes, I called them Tottenham. I will, despite what Dan Levy wants me to say or not say. Sonia, just to kind of close this one out, and before we talk about the time wasting, which is ridiculous, she said you could tell the difference between the first half and the second half for us. We were able to score quickly, but we need to realize football is a game about being efficient, scoring goals, and keeping good possession. If you want to hurt the opposition, you need to sometimes have more of a vertical game and be able to play balls in behind the back line, especially in the first half. We were brave and build up, and we possessed the ball, which is good, but when you have the opportunity to play forward, that's where you can hurt the opposition. And she kind of noted the wider back passes, the safe passes. So it sounds like Ollie, is saying to the team, like, take some more risks, like make those long runs because they can really pay off. And there were a couple. I mean, I remember Shuka Nuskin played a ball out to JRK, which was absolutely inch perfect, beautiful, splitting the defense. Just not a ton of those in this game. She said, I want the team at the end. I said to the team at the end, of course, it's really frustrating. We love to win and hate to drop points, but we have to look at the bigger picture. 5 points clear, and that's the main thing. We need to realize no game is going to be easy until the end of the season. We need to keep the right mindset and be ready to attack every game with the right intentions. That feels like a little bit of a
little dig.
Wake up, like no sleeping on the job for this one. These are not going to be simple. I'm pretty happy with those quotes. I mean, she's obviously a winner, and I think a lot of fans of the Chelsea men's team noted the differences between her press conferences and Enzo Maresca's press conferences as of recent, which is fun. But I know you're passionate about time wasting, Ollie, so we're going to waste some time in talking about the time wasting here. Brighton, obviously, the minute the equalizer goes in, start falling down, start having injuries, start playing the ball out, not getting carded for whatever reason. Journalism RP, our good friend Rob says, I don't begrudge Brighton up the point on their performance, but ultimately the WSL needs to get a grip on time wasting and disruptions. The Brighton keeper would have conceded 7 corners today under next year's rules, i.e. holding the ball. I mean, it's ridiculous, right?
It is. It is. I mean, to be honest, it is very traditional English football wise to shithouse in this way. And I feel like,
Totally.
if we were doing this against, say, a Barcelona in a Champions League final, and we allowed 9 minutes added on at the end, we probably would feel slightly different about it. But yeah, I mean, it was comical.
And have, by the way,
Oh,
and have.
100%. And
Yep.
I will proudly wear the badge of honor in the new camp and elsewhere. But I think, yeah, it was quite comical at times in terms of certain injuries. I mean, the referee didn't help herself when she allowed a sub to limp off from the opposite side of the pitch to the tunnel, as if the rule isn't you can go off anywhere on the pitch. That was fun. But yeah, I mean, it was laughable that we got 9 minutes, and then during the 9 minutes there was a further 3 minutes of time wasting, and it just felt like we were just going to play 9 minutes anyway. But it did feel sort of opposite for the game we were watching, right? It felt like
Yeah.
it was just the way it was supposed to be, given the nature of our performance as well, Nick.
This is not the reason we did not win this game. Let's just be very, very clear about this. We were not good enough to win this game, and that is just the way it is. But it's a really bad watch, and it's super annoying. And the referee has yellow cards for these things. Like, it's not as if you can't actually start handing out cards here and just go, okay, you know, and like start making verbal warnings to players like, that is unacceptable. Bam, I'm going to hit you with another one. Like, the minute you start throwing out a couple of yellows, I think, you can curb the behavior slightly. The goalkeeper's not going to hold it for another 6 minutes between goal kicks if, she's on a yellow, right? I mean, that obviously there's a competitive emphasis to that moment. So for me, I don't know, Ollie, like, I think the referee has to do a lot better. But it's certainly not the reason that we lost the game. It's just annoying to watch.
Yeah,
It's
I
just
mean,
not fun to watch.
it goes back to the standard of officiating, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if they make the right call earlier, it doesn't continue, things might be different. But yeah, as you say, it's absolutely not the reason why we lost today. And we absolutely could have won it in spite of all the time wasting and in spite of all the nonsense. So, and probably should have done, to be honest. But that's another story.
Well, let's take our final ad break here. We're going to talk about the gauntlet of a schedule that comes up next. This is the fun part, so let's dive in right after the ad break. Thanks to the sponsors for supporting the show, and we'll be right back. So we're going to move on to the final part here, Ollie, because we've droned on enough in this one. Chelsea are 5 points up in the WSL. right? 15 matches played, 13 wins, 2 draws, this one, and Leicester away. Pesky. 33 goal diff. That's 42 goals for, 9 against. 2 of those 9 were today. 41 points. Man United, 15 matches played, 11 wins, 3 draws, 1 defeat to us. Boom. 36 points. You made the point earlier that they have not lost since we played them and beat them. And that this table is, it's us at 41, it's them at 36, it's Arsenal at 33, it's City at 31. And that really is the top 4 because Brighton now on 19, and that's the rest of the table from there. And poor Crystal Palace will be going down this year almost certainly. It feels closer than maybe it did a minute ago. And not just because the 2 points dropped today. Like, obviously that is what it is. But it felt like Chelsea were in such an ascendancy, vibes-wise. Like, this is a team that has rocketed up the charts this year, record-breaking performances, still unbeaten on the season, and yet only 5 points up. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think just to be fair to United, I think they're on an historically good run right now. I think
Mm-hmm.
I think it speaks volumes that they've won literally every game since they played us in the league, and they're still 5 points behind us. Like, that must be dispiriting in a way, that that even though you've won literally every game, you're still 5 points back. I would just call out for United that they do have Liverpool away coming up in not too long, which does tend to be hard for them. Liverpool not on a great run this season, but even so, they can kind of pull off a shock at some points. And their last 3 games of the season is us at home, Man City at home, and then Arsenal away. So, like, fair play to them if they win those 3, but like, that is a hell of an end to a season. I think the reality is that if they keep that form up and we keep our form up, there's still going to be that gap. So we just have to keep playing through it. I would also call out the goals, Nick, because like 13 more goals here, that could play a massive part of this as well. So really, it's not 5 points. I'd say it's 6 points right now, just in terms of having to overturn that gap. But yeah, I think fair play to United, but we're still unbeaten, which is crazy to say 15 games in. Like, it's a hell of a year so far.
Well, let's talk about what comes next, because this is the important part, right? Sorry to bury the lead for everyone here, but we played Brighton today as the first of our 8-match march. Say that 10 times fast. We host Leicester on Wednesday, March 5th. We are hosting Crystal Palace on Sunday, March 9th. We host Man City. We're in the League Cup final against Man City on the 15th of March. We are away at City in the Champions League on the 19th of March. We are away at City in the league. Stop me if you've heard this one before. On March 23rd in the league. And then we are hosting Man City on the 27th of March in the second leg of the Champions League. And then, of course, not to be outdone by all that, we host West Ham at Kings Meadow, and we're going to be there for that one. So let's fucking go. Look, the 4 games against City here, half of our month is City, which it's absurd that this worked out the way that it did, but them's the breaks. What does Chelsea need to do here? Because I think my last point on this, and we will mercifully wrap this one up. Chelsea do not, to me right now, look like a Champions League winning team, because you look at the performances, the lack of full 90 clinical performances, and your Barcelona's, Lyons, and so on and so forth are doing those, I think, at a higher clip than we are right now. But it does not mean that in the next couple of months, as we really ramp up the Champions League and put a huge focus on that, hopefully wrap the league up here as soon as humanly possible, that cannot happen. So I guess in your mind, Ollie, what is Champions League worthy about this team right now? And what do we have to work on to get there. So let's start with the good. What is Champions League worthy about this team right now?
I mean, I think we have one of the informed world-class centre-backs in world football in Millie Bright. I think
Correct.
we have game changers in people like Lauren James and Sonia Baltimore, and in moments, people like Myra and Aggie, and when fit, people like Micah Hamano. I would say, yeah, in terms of the issues we face, I think they're all injury related, Nick. I think it's all about squad management. And I think, to me, most of this season, most of this spring series against Man City is going to come down
It's
to
a real
squad
throwback,
rotation.
Ollie.
I know.
It's a
Let's run it
throwback.
back. But yeah, I think it's all about squad rotation and squad management here, because I think if we use the best players in the best moments, we are a better team than any of the teams we're facing. And that team is City most of the time, 75% of the time going forward. It's just about knowing when to use them. And we were talking before this about the League Cup final. I think the Subway Cup is going to be a really interesting notifier about how the rest of the March is going to look. And I think that's going to be a fascinating insight into the rest of it. To me, it's all about making sure that come the first leg of the Champions League against City, we are exactly where we want to be, fitness-wise, personnel-wise, formation-wise, and that's where we're building to. I feel like we can muddle through against Leicester, all things being equal. I feel like we have to muddle through against Palace. I feel like the League Cup final is a cursed competition. It should burn unless we win it, in which case it's the best League Cup that's existed in the last few years. But that March the 19th Champions League quarterfinal first leg is where we need to build into, because we talk about running Chelsea. It's all about making sure you change those elements to get the best form of Chelsea going into that run-in.
I would agree with your positives. I do think there is real leadership in this team. I do think that Sonia is a huge asset to this team, and I would put her as a Champions League worthy component. I think there are Champions League worthy goals in this team, but I'm unsure where they're going to come from at times, and I think that worries me a little bit. I am concerned about a midfield performance that is of a Champions League level. You think about the amount of work that Aaron did last year, that Shuka did last year, right? Like the amount of just heavy lift and graft and tackling and possession and the stuff that you need to really, when it comes down to it, to beat that team. And they're the marker in my mind, but there are plenty of other good teams out there. I'm a little concerned. And I do think, depending on how we structure the defense, I'm a little concerned about who that third center back potentially is and how we play, right? You can go super defensive and have, someone like Lucy Bronze as a wing back, right? Who, if you're unsure about JRK's defensive, work rate, that could be an option. You obviously want to use Sandy for what she can do really well in attack, but that could potentially be a weakness that someone like Barcelona, Lyon, etc., identify and want to attack. Right? This is now the elite. So for us to get to the level where we're playing elite, everyone needs to be on their game. I worry about those components a little bit. I am excited to see what Lauren James decides to do in this period, because it feels like she is really on the up and is looking confident, is communicating well, is starting to do the little shifty things with the ball at her feet that we know that she is known for and legendary for. Is she the match winner in this long stretch of matches that we have? Is she going to put in 2 or 3 match winning performances when we really need them? It'll be interesting. Striker is fascinating to me. I don't know right now. I don't know where Myra is going to end up, or if Sam Kerr magically comes back for some of these fixtures, or what that really looks like. But I think we're up there, but we're not there, if that makes sense. And I think this team, if they navigate March, will be a real threat. Right. Obviously, we don't navigate March. We don't have anything to talk about. But if we do navigate March, and you make it through 4 Man Cities in a row, and you're looking at the rest of the fixtures out there, it's an interesting fixture series at the end, because after West Ham, you only have 4 league matches.
Yep.
Palace, United, Spurs, Liverpool.
Very winnable. Like, and this
Make
is
it
the
through
thing
March.
You're exactly. Like, I feel like if we come out on the back of March and we're still unbeaten in the league, at least, like we win against Leicester, we win against West Ham, you draw or win against City, and we're through in the Champions League. I don't necessarily care about the League Cup. I know Sonia will. Then we're in a very, very good position. I think what's going to be really interesting is seeing the rotation against Leicester, against Palace, because I feel like we're going to see some forethought for that run against City, and I'm interested to see the kind of distraction she's going to throw out there for Gareth Taylor et al.
You and I are both strategists by nature, and what we do. It is fascinating to see 2 of the bottom of the table WSL teams, admittedly one in the FA Cup, one in the league, and then that first salvo against City in a competition where we historically just don't turn up for the final. And it will be fascinating to see what strategy she deploys, because do you go for gold and just bury them and put that marker down to say it's going to be a long month for you guys, and we're coming, and you better get ready, because even at home you can't run away from us, like we're going to be there? Or do you go, this isn't the end of the world, we're going to get them overconfident, and if we beat them with some different tactics, great, but what we're going to do is really go and try and end their season at home and really make a point. It's gonna be, because you're playing the same team 4 fucking times in a row. Like, there's only so many different things you can do. So it will be down to individual players turning up and putting in amazing performances. But it's like there are some things that both Sonia and Gareth can do to ensure that their teams are set up for the best level of success possible. And I'm just, that March 15th date I have circled on my calendar, because not only do I look forward to watching it and potentially being upset after, but this is one where I'm like, what is the strategy? Because I don't think you're going to see the same strategy on March 15th as you do on March 19th. I just don't.
No, and I feel like we have so many more options if we do have people coming back into fitness. I think that's what's so fascinating, is that we know essentially how Gareth Taylor plays with the City team. We know essentially how he plays against us. We know who his key players are.
Mm-hmm.
And we can switch it up a bit to varying forms of success, but we can switch it up. And I think that's what's so interesting, especially when we're thinking about a winner like Sonia. She's going to think about risk reward, right? She's going to think about, we absolutely want to win this. What's the craziest, least use of energy I can get from everyone in this squad that has the quality to absolutely mute this Man City team, but also maybe doesn't even show my cards for the first leg. And then you're thinking about the
3,
first
back
leg.
4,
Right?
midfield. It's
Yeah.
Anyway, you think about the other date I've circled here is March 27th, home in the Champions League. Screams just Aaron Cuthbert be healthy. Send up whatever version of prayers that you have in your own life, but screams Aaron Cuthbert performance to me. Just, if she's able to be out on the pitch, that is the game. You need her badly. I think you can probably get through the rest in whatever fashion that you need to. But if that rib heals, by March 27th. That could be a big, big day. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there right now. But we will be at the West Ham match. And so hopefully we're there in a celebratory mood after 7 straight wins and knocking City out of everything. And God, that would just be glorious. But Ollie, this has been an extended version. Part of this is going to be on YouTube as a YouTube standalone. But love having you on the pod. And yeah, any final thoughts here?
Anytime, bro. It's great to talk about a Chelsea team that is run like this
Ambitious
and
tries to win.
has some of the best players in the world and is going through for all these titles. I think it's such an exciting team to follow, and yeah, can't wait to see you at Kings Meadow on March the 30th.
Can't wait. All right, Chelsea fans, let us know how you feel about this one, and in particular, go view our player ratings on YouTube. That was a fun little exercise that we just did. But until next time, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.